Hi, I'm Matt Nelson, president of CDC Comics. A little over 2 years ago, CDC began certifying pulps, and since then we've seen a lot of amazing pulps come through the door, and the market has really exploded on these items. For those of you who are unfamiliar with pulps, they're a form of entertainment very closely related to comic books that came out primarily in the first half of the 20th century. But unlike comics, they were mostly geared towards adults, and they feature beautifully painted covers. With this explosion in interest, we've also seen a lot of interest in how CDC grades pulps. So I would like to grade a few pulps on camera for you. The first low-grade pulp I'm going to grade today is a Spicy Mystery, which is one of the most popular pulp titles in collecting. This features a classic H.J. Ward cover, a hanging cover, but what makes it extra cool for collectors is that it mentions the word Batman as one of the stories. Now, this doesn't refer to the Batman we all know and love, which didn't appear for another 3 years in comic books, but it's still very cool. So when grading pulps, the first thing we do, just like in comic books, is count the pages. Now, pulps have more pages than comics typically, sometimes a lot more pages, so more care and time has to be taken with the pulp pages because they're also cut differently. The edges are more rough, which makes counting pages a little bit more difficult. But we go through each page and we check to make sure that they're complete, they're not missing any parts, there's no presence of tape or restoration, and we're also assessing the page quality as we go. So even though there's some wear to the interior pages, the pulp is complete, it has all of its pages, and the page quality is about cream to off-white. Now it's important to note that because pulps have a higher page count than comics, CGC considers missing pages to be less of a detraction on grade than comic books. For instance, in comics, if a book is missing one page, we automatically give it a 0.5 grade. But in pulps, one missing page can actually grade as high as a 1.5. 2 missing pages is a 1.0, and 3 missing pages will bring it to a 0.5. So there's a little bit of leniency there in terms of missing pulps because of the higher page count. So looking at this front cover, it looks like a typical lower grade pulp, not too low grade, but it actually presents very well because most of the defects are relegated to the edges. There's a good number of creases on the cover, mostly to the edges and a little bit on the corners and then the logo, and a small piece missing from the bottom corner. But there's really no major tears, there's no tape or any kind of staining that would mar its appearance. On the back cover, kind of the same thing, some creasing, some tears on the edges, but no stains, no tape, or anything else that would really affect the back cover. Now we're going to look at the spine of this particular copy, and it's actually in pretty good shape. Typically spines have missing pieces, particularly at the top and bottom spine, but this one is fairly complete. The other important thing to assess on spines is splitting. This can be done by examining the inside cover as well as the outside, but it's usually most visible on the inside if you carefully open it. So the front cover is fully intact, top to bottom. There is a small tear here at the bottom of the spine, but otherwise there's no splitting evident in the middle of the spine. On the back cover though, I noticed that there is some spine splitting going on, particularly in the middle of the spine and also at the bottom of the spine. Now this is important to note because spine splits is very common on pulps and can adversely affect the grade. Factoring in its most serious defects, the creasing on the cover, the piece out of the bottom front cover, and some spine splitting to the back of the spine, I arrive at a grade of 3.0 with cream to off-white pages. I'd like to now show you a very high-grade example of a pulp. This Phantom Detective from January 1935 featuring a cool skull cover, and skulls are a very common motif on pulps and something that's very sought after by collectors. Now what's special about this pulp is this is from the Strasser Pedigree collection, which features many high-grade pulps that turned up for sale in the 1990s and covered the era of particularly the 1930s pulps, which is a pretty tough period, particularly early and mid-30s. First impression of this is that, like many Strassers, it's absolutely stunning. It's got full gloss, it's white, the interior pages are high quality, the spine is in beautiful shape, and the overhang actually has very little wear. Like many pulps from the Strasser pedigree, this one has the ink code written here, but also has the name Robert Strasser written in the O in Phantom, which is a very cool aspect for this particular pulp. As we do with all pulps, we start with the page count of this pulp. And these pages are in great shape. There's like just a little bit of tanning here along the bottom, but otherwise the middle part is white. So confirm that all of the pages are present in this particular pulp. And now we're moving on to the cover. And yeah, this cover is just, it's gorgeous. There's just the slightest bit of wear here along the edge, like a little tiny tear there, and just some very minor creasing to the overhang. So as I mentioned, overhang is usually the main factor in what prevents a pulp from grading higher than a 7 or an 8. Now in this particular case, this pulp doesn't have very much overhang. It's got a little bit here down the right edge and a little bit more on the bottom. Typically there's overhang on one or two sides of a pulp, but rarely on all three sides. And so this one with the overhang on the right and the bottom edge does have very slight wear, but considering its age, and especially considering how rare pulps are in high grade, this is an exceptional copy with very little wear. The back cover is stunning. It is completely free of any soiling and almost any defects. It's bright white, full gloss is still intact, and only the slightest bit of wear here on the edge, a couple of very minor tears, and a little dent down here. Now this tear right here is a very common production tear. This is present on many pulps in the bottom corner, and actually doesn't factor into grading unless we're talking about the high 9s, which is very rare for a pulp. Examining the spine, I see that it is almost perfect. There is no evidence of bindery chips or tears at the top or bottom spine, which is also very common on pulps. And there is no marring or any kind of defects present on the middle part of the spine. The text is completely intact, with no creasing or any signs of wear whatsoever. The inside covers are beautiful, just like the back cover, fully white with no signs of tanning, no other signs of wear. And the back cover, same thing, just the slightest little wear to the edges. Taking the very light wear to the cover into consideration, this is going to be a very high grade pulp. Very hard to find pulps higher than 8.0 and extremely rare over 9.0, and this one falls somewhere in between, mainly because of the slight wear to the overhang right here that breaks color, a little bit more color break here, a small tear here, and just the slightest bit of color loss right here. And giving all those things, and the fact that the back cover is nearly perfect except for very light wear to the edges and a perfect spine, I grade this pulp an 8.5 with off-white to white pages. Another high-grade pulp I'd like to grade is a Weird Tales. Now this is one of the most popular runs in pulp collecting. Weird Tales ran from the 1920s into the 1950s and features a number of great covers by a number of different artists, including Margaret Brundage, particularly through the 30s and 40s. Now this copy is gorgeous, and it's important to grade this particular issue because Weird Tales have their own things to look out for when you're grading. Because of the popularity of the run, we get a lot of these into the grading room, and so we'll start with the page count to make sure this pulp is complete. This pulp is complete, all the pages are present, and you'll notice here the table of contents, which is present on all pulps. This is a very important page, not only to identify the pulp itself and the contents, but oftentimes this page is missing. Now another thing to consider with Weird Tales is the way they're cut. As I mentioned, overhang is very common on many pulps and is one of the reasons why pulps don't achieve very high grades. But the way Weird Tales are cut, particularly the issues from the 30s on, there's less overhang present. Typically they're flush on the right edge with only the slightest trace of overhang on the top or bottom. Examining the cover of this pulp, I noticed that, like a lot of the copies from Weird Tales, there is some evidence of overhang wear, particularly along the bottom edge of the overhang. Some creasing here that breaks color, but as we go up the right side, notice that there's very little color break, only the slightest bit on the edges, which is probably due to the fact that there really is no overhang on that edge. Same thing with the top edge. Very slight overhang, very slight wear. The only thing really to point out is the wear here to the top corner. The back cover is white and bright and free of any soiling, and only the slightest bit of staining over here on the left side. Also in that same area, there's a crease, a diagonal crease here on the left that just has to be factored into the grade. But other than that, the back cover is mostly free of any kind of moderate or major defects. Next, we'll examine the spine, which is beautiful red, blood red I call it. Now, most spines are not red on pulps, but the Weird Tales run is red. The spines are red and very often they're faded. And the reason is because Weird Tales, being as popular as they were often kept on bookshelves with the spines facing outward and exposed to light. And so because of that, there's many Weird Tales copies that have spines that are faded, even high-grade copies. So it's important things to consider, especially when you're grading a Weird Tales that's in the 8.0 or 9.0 range. There's no bindery chips, but there is wear to the very edges of the top and bottom spine, which is due to the overhang of the cover and probably being handled and maybe even put on a bookshelf at one point. Because of how popular Weird Tales are among collectors, color touch is not uncommon, particularly on the front cover. But this copy has no evidence of color touch, either on the front cover or on the spine. In conclusion, the grade comes down to the slight wear on the edges of the front cover and the slight wear to the overhang of the bottom front cover, and the crease and light staining on the left edge of the back cover. Given these defects, I give this book a 7.0 with off-white to white pages. After examining a high-grade copy of Weird Tales, let's look at a low-grade copy from the same run. Unlike the other low-grade copy that I examined, this one has a different set of defects that make it low-grade. We'll start with the page count. While I was counting the pages, I noticed the quality of the paper, particularly this splitting occurring here on the first couple of wraps in the bottom left-hand corner, and also some rounding from chipping to the bottom corner of the interior pages. These two things indicate brittleness has set into the paper, but it's slight in nature, and so we're going to assign the slightly brittle pages. Looking at the cover, it has a nice appearance, but there's some chips out of the right edge and a strip of tape along the spine. Now this is common on pulps because often tape's used to close splits. And so the first thing we have to do, just like in comic books, is examine the spine closely to see exactly what the tape is repairing. After looking at the interior spine, I noticed that the cover was actually completely split and detached from the rest of the book and was reattached with tape. Now the presence of tape, in particular this much tape, is actually going to lower the grade slightly. But before we get to that, let's finish examining the cover to make sure that we take all the other defects into consideration. Besides the pieces out of the left side of the front cover and some wear to the edges, which is fairly minor, I flip over to the back cover and notice that there's some tanning going on, some tears on the bottom edge, some writing in the top corner, and the tanning is also present on the interior covers as well. It's not particularly bad, and it's not going to be a factor in grading given the fact that the front cover is detached and retaped. As I mentioned, with spines on Weird Tales often being faded, I noticed that this spine does have a slight to moderate amount of fading, but like the tanning, it's not going to have much of an impact on grade because of the other defects that are present. The detached cover is going to max the grade out at 2.5, and with the presence of a strip of tape on the spine, it's going to lower the grade to a 2.0. I then consider if the other defects that are present could actually lower the grade below 2.0, but I don't feel like the defects are severe enough to bring it down to a 1.8. Therefore, I would grade this pulp a 2.0 with slightly brittle pages. The pulps are now graded and encapsulated. Like these copies, whether low grade or high grade, each pulp really tells its own story. At CGC, our goal is to evaluate these books as accurately and consistently as possible. And once graded, they're encapsulated in our state-of-the-art holders to help preserve and protect them long-term. It's all part of helping collectors better understand and safeguard these incredible pieces of history. And right now is an exciting time for pulp collecting.